In New Zealand, you can be jailed for refusing a breathalyzer test, even if you're stone cold sober, sitting in your parked car with the engine off. No accident. No reckless driving. Just refusal. In America, that would violate your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. So why does New Zealand make it a crime? And more importantly, could it happen to you? If you've ever wondered how far governments can go to control your choices, this law will blow your mind. Let's dive in. But wait, before we begin, please hit the subscribe button to ensure that you never miss out on any of my videos. Drop your comments below, and I will personally welcome you to our community. With that said, let's get started. Under New Zealand's Land Transport Act 1998, refusing a breathalyzer or blood test carries a maximum penalty of 3 months in prison and a $4,500 fine. That's the same punishment as low-level drunk driving. Think about that. You don't even have to be drunk. You just have to say no. Meet David, 34 years old, high school teacher in Auckland. July 2019. He's driving home after dinner with friends, 0 alcohol in his system. He gets pulled over at a checkpoint. Officer asks him to blow into the device. David refuses. Not because he's hiding anything. He just doesn't think the government should force him to incriminate himself. 2 weeks later, he's convicted. License suspended for 6 months. $2,000 fine. His principal questions whether he should still teach civics class. And David's not alone. The New Zealand Ministry of Justice reports an average of 1,200 refusal convictions every year from 2020 to 2023. 1,200 people, many of them completely sober, punished for exercising what they thought was a basic right. But here's where it gets stranger. This law applies even when you're not driving. In New Zealand, police can demand a breath test if you're sitting in a parked car with the keys in the ignition, even if you're just listening to music or charging your phone. Meet Sarah, 28, nurse in Wellington. December 2021. She just finished a 12-hour shift. She's exhausted. She pulls into a parking lot to text her boyfriend before heading home. It's freezing, so she leaves the keys in the ignition to keep the heater running. A patrol car pulls up. Officer knocks on her window. Asks her to step out and take a breath test. Sarah's confused. She hasn't been driving. She refuses, thinking she has the right to remain silent. She's arrested on the spot. In court, her lawyer argues she wasn't in charge of a vehicle because she wasn't operating it. The judge disagrees. The engine was on. The keys were accessible. By legal definition, she was in control. Conviction stands. Sarah's chest tightens every time she sees flashing lights now. She can't shake the feeling that she did something wrong, even though she didn't. Now contrast that with America. In 2016, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Birchfield versus North Dakota that you cannot be criminally punished for refusing a warrantless breath test. It's a violation of the Fourth Amendment, protection against unreasonable searches. A Harvard Law Review analysis from 2017 noted that 13 U.S. states repealed their criminal refusal penalties after that ruling. In America, you might lose your license if you refuse. But you won't lose your freedom. So why does New Zealand make refusal a crime? The answer lies in a legal doctrine America abandoned decades ago. New Zealand operates under what's called strict implied consent. The idea is simple. By getting a driver's license, you automatically agree to submit to testing. No exceptions. No opt-out. This doctrine came out of the 1960s, when drunk driving deaths were epidemic. Countries around the world were desperate for solutions. New Zealand adopted one of the strictest versions of implied consent in 1978, and they've never looked back. In the US, implied consent exists too, but it's civil, not criminal. You lose your license, not your freedom. In New Zealand, you lose both. Meet James, 52 years old. Runs a small construction business in Christchurch. In 2018, he's pulled over at a checkpoint. The officer asks for a breath test. James refuses. Not because he's drunk. He hasn't had a drink in 15 years. But he has a history, traumatic encounters with police when he was younger. He doesn't trust them. He just can't do it. He's convicted. He appeals all the way to the High Court, arguing the law violates his human rights under the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act. The court sides with the government. The ruling? Public safety outweighs individual autonomy. James reads that line over and over. He thinks about his business, his employees, his family, and he wonders, when did saying no become a crime? But there's a hidden danger in this law no one talks about, and it's destroying innocent lives. Here's the dark side. People with legitimate reasons to refuse, medical conditions, trauma, language barriers, are being criminalized. Meet Emma, 41 years old, mother of 2 in Dunedin. She has a severe anxiety disorder and claustrophobia. Diagnosed. Medicated. She manages it, but certain situations trigger her. In 2020, she's driving home from her daughter's soccer game. She gets stopped at a checkpoint. The officer shines a flashlight in her face. Demands she blow into the device. Emma's chest tightens like a vice. She can't breathe. Her hands shake. The officer's voice gets louder. She gasps for air. The flashlight feels like a spotlight on her shame. She can't do it. Not refusal, incapacity. The officer doesn't care. She's arrested. Handcuffed in front of her kids. They're crying in the back seat. She loses her job. Her husband has to take time off work. Their savings evaporate. A 2022 study from the University of Otago found that 18% of refusal cases involved individuals with diagnosed anxiety, PTSD, or respiratory conditions. 18%. Nearly 1 in 5. These aren't criminals. They're people who need help. Advocacy groups are pushing for change, mandatory mental health training for officers, medical exemption protocols like Australia's disability accommodations. But so far, the government hasn't budged. And then there's the question no one's asking. Does this law even work? New Zealand's drunk driving deaths dropped 45% from 1990 to 2020. Sounds impressive, right? But here's the thing, so did America's. Without criminal refusal penalties. Countries like Sweden and Norway, which have strict refusal laws, saw reductions of 50% or more. But so did the UK, which decriminalized refusal in 2015. So what's actually driving the decline? According to the World Health Organization's 2023 Global Road Safety Report, the real game changer is random breath testing checkpoints, not refusal penalties. A 2021 study from Monash University in Australia found that checkpoints reduced DUI incidents by 22%. Refusal laws? Negligible independent impact. Dr. Helen Archer, a trauma psychologist who's studied punitive road safety measures, told us this. Fear-based laws don't change behavior, they just punish the vulnerable. So if the law doesn't work, why does New Zealand keep it? The answer might shock you. It's about control. And revenue. Refusal convictions bring in an estimated $2.7 million annually in fines. And here's the kicker. 60% of refusals happen at checkpoints with zero indication of impairment. No swerving. No smell of alcohol. Just routine stops. Translation? Fishing expeditions. Remember David, the teacher? He sued the government for wrongful conviction. He lost. The judge wrote, "Inconvenience to the innocent is the price of public safety." Read that again. Inconvenience to the innocent. In America, the ACLU has successfully challenged checkpoint programs in 12 states, citing Fourth Amendment violations. In a 2022 legal report, they argued that suspicion-less stops, no matter the intent, erode constitutional protections. New Zealand doesn't have those protections. And the government knows it. But here's the twist, New Zealanders are fighting back. In 2023, a grassroots movement called Reform Refusal NZ launched. Their goal? Decriminalize refusal and introduce a reasonable excuse defense. The movement is led by Emma. Yes, the mother we talked about earlier. She stands at the Parliament steps now, her voice steady. 15,000 signatures in hand. A drafted bill modeled on Canada's system, which allows people to present medical or psychological reasons for refusal. My panic attack wasn't defiance, she says. It was survival. And I won't let another parent go through what I did. A 2024 poll showed 62% of New Zealanders support decriminalization or reform. 62%. But the government refuses to budge. The transportation minister argues, softening the law sends the wrong message. Emma doesn't buy it. Neither do the thousands standing with her. So what can you do if you're ever in this situation? If you're in New Zealand, here's what you need to know. 1. If you have a medical condition that affects your ability to take a breath test, carry a doctor's note. It won't guarantee immunity, but it's evidence. 2. You can request a blood test instead. It's your legal right under Section 72 of the Land Transport Act. Blood tests are more accurate anyway. 3. Record everything. Use your phone to document the interaction. It's legal in New Zealand, and it protects you if things go sideways. 4. Call the Community Law Centre hotline immediately, 0800-WNZ. They offer free legal advice and can connect you with a lawyer. These steps won't eliminate the risk, but they give you options. And here's the broader lesson. This isn't just about New Zealand. It's about knowing where your government draws the line and whether you agree with it. So let's recap. In New Zealand, you can go to jail for refusing a test, even if you're innocent. In America, that's unconstitutional. The law barely reduces drunk driving, but it brings in millions. And the people hurt most? The vulnerable. Here's my question for you. If public safety requires punishing the innocent, is it really safety or just control? And here's the real one. Would you refuse the test on principle, knowing you'd be convicted? Or would you comply, even if it violated your beliefs? Tell me in the comments. And if you think this law is insane, share this video with someone who needs to see it. Because the more people know, the harder it is for governments to get away with this. Oh, and one more thing. There's a country with an even crazier breathalyzer law. I'll cover it next week. You won't believe what they can do.